Good afternoon from London. It's a drab March afternoon here in London, could do with better weather. And hello from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, chairman of the UK Korean Friendship Association, an official delegate of the Korean Friendship Association for the UK, and also President of the Association for the Study of Songun Politics of the UK. Today I'm going to speak about why People's Korea, the DPRK, does not need reform or opening up, and this will be an expanded version of the article that I wrote on the subject, which will be included in the links in the description for this video. Recently, the Financial Times, which is a sort of Bible for capitalists and monopolists and imperialists, attacked self-reliance in People's Korea. Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? Because self-reliance is the DPRK's secret weapon against imperialism, as well as an example to other countries, particularly the countries of the oppressed Third World. Self-reliance is to the imperialists what a silver bullet is to a werewolf, or like gold dust to a Cyberman. Sorry for the Doctor Who reference that some people may not understand. Also, the CIA-backed NK News, the dreadful anti-DPRK, anti-KFA website, carried several articles on the theme that the DPRK should be opening up and reforming. Firstly, suggesting that it should copy the measures allegedly adopted in another socialist country that is a close ally of the DPRK. Secondly, saying that the DPRK should basically abandon socialism and invite McDonald's and Walmart into the DPRK. This, of course, was really letting the cat out of the bag. On the issue of the DPRK copying other socialist countries, it should be stressed that the DPRK has its own way, its own idea. It has the Juche Idea, which stipulates that the people of each country are the masters of the revolution and construction, that the revolution and construction should be carried out independently and creatively. The DPRK does not copy other countries, but of course is prepared to learn from the positive experience of other countries. President Kim Il-sung always stressed that the DPRK would apply the experience that suited the DPRK's situation and needs in a way appropriate to the situation of the DPRK. What works in one country may not necessarily work in a different in another country, and in fact the country cited as an example for the DPRK to copy had although it had a lot of similarities with the DPRK, in fact had a different history in the field, certain or economic history, because that country did not develop heavy industry like the DPRK did. It didn't develop an independent national economy based on self-reliance with heavy industry at its core. Instead, it for a long time depended on the USSR, and of course got into difficulties once the USSR collapsed in the early 90s. The Juche Idea is based on the whole experience of the Korean Revolution and the history of Korea. In the past, different people wanted to depend on foreign countries and copy them submissively. They became known as flunkyists. It soon became apparent that looking up to other countries was not the way forward. In fact, it only brought disasters such as the colonisation of Korea by Japan, as well as internal conflict and divisions in the early nationalist and communist movements. Therefore, Korean people rejected flunkeyism and established Juche. Since then, they have achieved miracle after miracle and have never looked back. It can be added in passing, maybe on a controversial note, that some people criticise the socialist country that's been presented as an example for the DPRK to follow. Some people had said that country concerned is on the road to capitalism, that socialism is wobbling, and that the country concerned is dodgy, etc. A few decades ago, a certain neighbouring country to the DPRK adopted reform and opening up, only to invite harsh criticism from the world revolutionary progressive people, and the country concerned, although it gained some so-called friends, businessmen and exploiters, actually lost a lot of friends and lost a lot of goodwill. The question is posed, does the DPRK need to reform and open up? The answer is no, no and no. As the great leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, wrote in his work, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is a Juche-orientated socialist state with invincible might. The imperialist reactionaries are now slandering our republic, the motherland of Juche, claiming that it is closed and isolated, and are making futile attempts to lead us to reform and openness. Our country has never closed its doors and maintains good relations with many countries, home to millions of people around the world, based on mutual respect. As reform, we reformed the outdated socialist system in a revolutionary fashion decades ago, and have been constantly creating the new and renovating what is old and backward. In actual fact, the imperialists and reactionaries are hostile to our country and are blockading it and trying to isolate it. The reform and openness they are advocating represent a move to destroy and put down our style of socialism. Such moves will only worsen their relations with us and are doomed to failure. End quotation. This succinctly and eloquently sums up why the DPRK does not need to reform and open up, and also the reactionary nature of reform and opening up advocated by the imperialists. In fact, People's Korea carried out a radical, thoroughgoing and revolutionary democratic reforms such as the agrarian reform, the law on nationalisation of basic industries, the labour law, the law on sexual equality. It carried out socialist transformation in its own Juche-based way. An advanced socialist system centred upon the masses came into being in the land of the morning calm. DPRK citizens get free healthcare, free education, virtually free food and virtually free housing. Why do they need to give this up and change it for something else? The DPRK over the years has achieved stunning economic success. In fact, the term Korean miracle was first coined by the famous Cambridge economist Professor Joan V. Robinson to describe the DPRK and not South Korea in 1964. In the DPRK, between 1946 and 1984, industrial output value increased by 431 times. In the same period, per capita national income increased by 65 times. Grain production increased by 3.5 times. During the period of the Chalima upsurge, Chalima being a mythical and legendary flying horse, which can cover a great distance in a day during the late 1950s, industrial output growth hit 40% in 1 year, an even higher rate than the old USSR under the rule of J.V. Stalin. In the DPRK, economic growth is used entirely for the people. It goes to increasing wages, building new schools, new housing and hospitals, whereas in South Korea and other capitalist countries, money from increased economic growth simply goes into the pockets of the capitalists. Also in South Korea, which is the most perverse and crazy place, money from the South Korean taxpayers is paid to the US Army for upkeep expenses, which, by the way, have just been increased. So economic growth in South Korea not only benefits local and international monopoly capitalists, but also the US Army, and could say here, that US soldiers in South Korea enjoy good lives with luxury swimming pools and all kinds of facilities, while the South Korean people live in slums. Visiting People's Korea in the period from 2012 to 2017, I witnessed whole new streets, some of which are the size of small towns, such as Changjong Street, Mirai Scientist Street and Rumyong Street, being constructed and completed. In the DPRK, real wages are enhanced by free housing and free medical care, etc. There was talk that the DPRK should copy McDonald's or Walmart or allow them to set up in the DPRK. One of the great things about the DPRK is that it does not have either McDonald's, KFC, Burger King or foreign banks in its territory. This is a manifestation of its independence based on the Juche Idea. McDonald's and Walmart are both highly exploitative businesses associated with low pay and long hours. Both are notoriously anti-trade unions. Why does the DPRK need to learn from these vile monopoly capitalist transnational corporations? Opening up to these companies would mean that people in the DPRK, the workers of the DPRK, would be exploited and would become wage slaves, working for hours and hours each day with no rest. The DPRK actually has its own well-run service industries. In the past, socialism was weakened in some countries and eventually collapsed because they did not follow the path of self-reliance, but instead cozied up to the imperialists and even became dependent on them. There is no need at all for the DPRK to reform and open up. It does not need capitalism, it doesn't need imperialism, it doesn't need the US. The DPRK has survived for 13 months after closing its borders in January 2020, when some countries would not last for 2 or 3 days with their border closed. The DPRK will march to final victory under the banner of the Juche Idea and self-reliance, and will implement the decisions of the 8th Party, the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea. Long live the Juche Idea, long live People's Korea. Thank you for listening to this video. If you're not already a subscriber to our channel, please subscribe, and to the affiliated channel UK KFA, and please check out Facebook and Twitter for our events. We have another study meeting coming up on Saturday 27th of March. I wish you all a good day. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye.